There's some milk in the refrigerator, dear, if you'd like some before you go to bed.
All right, Mom. In a minute. Say, Mom,
I never was so humiliated in all my life. I don't think I can ever go back to the Kingdom Hall again.
Now, Gail, don't take it so bad. It really wasn't.
Too. I heard all the friends laughing. I can't see why Brother School Servant insists on assigning me a talk with that good-for-nothing. I told him I didn't want to take the talk with her.
Oh, Gail, you didn't.
Yes, I did. He knows that she and I don't get along. She's always trying to do something to annoy me or to make me look foolish in front of others in the congregation. She's just a good-for-nothing.
Careful with the crumbs on the floor there, Peter.
Okay, Mom.
Now, Gail, your father has talked to you about that. You know that isn't the right attitude.
Well, I don't care. It's true.
Good-for-nothing forgot her lines again, didn't she?
Oh, she didn't forget her lines. She deliberately mixed it all up so that it would throw me off. She threw in those questions just to try to make me look foolish.
Peter, don't call her good for nothing. Her name is Vera, and it's bad enough for Gail to call her that.
Okay, Mom. You still upset about the talk, Gail? I thought it was a good talk. Vera sure threw you a curve, though. Boy, I thought for a minute you were going to get real mad.
Well, I'm glad to see that your sister has enough control so that she didn't get angry on the platform.
Well, I don't know why I have to put up with her like that anymore.
Now, Gail, you know that we're not supposed to hold animosity against our brothers. Maybe she really did forget. Maybe she got flustered, too.
What do you mean, too? I didn't get flustered. I was just mad. I know that she did it deliberately just to make me look foolish.
Oh, I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. Brother School Servant said you did a good job. He said you handled the situation very well.
That's another thing. Then he had to apologize for me on the platform, as though it were my fault, as though I'd forgotten. Well, I know that I don't want to go back to the hall again as long as Good-for-Nothing is there. I don't think I could face her again without something really happening.
Now, baby, I think you should forget what happened tonight. I know you're upset over it, and I can understand how you feel. We've told you that we feel badly that it had to happen as it did, but you did give a good talk in spite of it, and if you continue to dwell on it, you're going to get so upset that you'll lose your sense of balance, and this matter will get all out of proportion.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's already out of proportion. And as long as Good-for-Nothing goes to that hall, I'm not going back.
Now, baby, just a minute. That's pretty strong talk. In the first place, I'm going to insist that you quit calling Vera Good-for-Nothing. It's a bad attitude, and I'm sure you don't really mean it.
Oh, yes, I do.
Aren't you forgetting what Jesus said about loving one another?
Honestly, Father, I don't see why I should be expected to love someone like her. I just can't stand her.
Now, Gail, it's a very serious thing when you try to change around the words of Jesus. He didn't make any qualifications except
to say we should love those in the organization.
But you're both in the organization, Gail.
Oh, no, we're not. Either she's out or I'm out. It's either one or the other.
You're kidding.
I was never more serious in my whole life.
Gail, you can't mean that.
You'll see how I can mean it.
Now, Gail, I know you're upset. And I know this has been building up for a long time. I'm beginning to think this is more serious than I'd realized, but I want you to think seriously about what you're saying.
I know what I'm saying.
And what it could mean for you. Now, suppose suddenly conditions began to get very bad. Now, let's say our preaching work was banned, and suppose it was up to you to warn Vera of something she must do in order to avoid getting into difficulty with the political authorities. What would you do?
Oh, Father, that's so impossible.
It isn't as impossible as you might think. In some of the African countries, for example, these things happened overnight. And suddenly the brothers found themselves in great danger. And it was necessary for some of them even to flee for their lives in order not to be killed by fanatic, patriotic mobs.
Those things don't happen that often.
It doesn't mean they can't. It certainly doesn't look like it would happen tomorrow, but we know that with the end so near, we can't afford to be caught asleep or in a state of mind completely out of harmony with what God expects and requires of his people. Remember what it was that Jesus said would be the distinguishing mark of the true congregation.
Oh, I don't know what you mean.
I do. He said they would love one another.
That's right. And if we don't manifest that love under all circumstances, then we're marking ourselves as not being fully a part of God's congregation. Think of this for a moment, Gail. In the time of the apostles and Jesus' early disciples, Cestius Gallus laid siege against Jerusalem and then suddenly pulled out and withdrew. Now, you remember that this was the sign Jesus had given for all the Christians to note. And when this happened, What were they told to do?
I don't know.
Now, Gail, I'm sure you do. I'm talking to you seriously, and I don't want any foolishness. Now, what were they told to do?
Get out of Jerusalem, I suppose. But I don't see what...
And completely out of Judea and go clear over into the mountains. Now, Gail, suppose we had lived then, and it was necessary for you to help Vera in order to get her out of the city. What would you do?
I don't know why I'd have to help her. Why would it be up to me?
You don't know. We don't know what the circumstances are going to be, and if you have that feeling towards Vera, you might find yourself in a very difficult situation. Now, would you allow her to die, or would you forget your animosity toward her and help her?
But I don't see how anything like that
But it's all a part of our love for one another, Gail. We know that we're living in a very critical time, and we can't afford in any way to allow ourselves to become sidetracked.
That's right, Gail. Now, we have no way of knowing at this time what's going to be expected and required of us before this is all over. Jesus said that we should be willing to do anything for our brothers. Well, some of us might even be called upon to give our lives.
God's people in times past have gone through these things.
Well, we shouldn't deceive ourselves into thinking that we're different just because we live in this time period. In fact, we have even more reason to believe that our faith will be tested beyond anything that has ever occurred before. Now, Gail, you must ask yourself, would I be willing to do that for my brothers? And if you can't honestly say in your heart that you could do that for Vera, then you should do everything you can to overcome this feeling that you have for her.
But why might I ever be called on to give my life for anyone like Vera?
Well, you don't know. None of us know. Now, I'm not saying you might have to give your life, but your life might be put in danger because of your brothers. I could tell you about someone who didn't know either that she would be called on to endanger her life, but at a time when she least expected it, at a time when it would appear that nothing could have interfered with the position that she held and the prospects of the future, suddenly she was called upon to make one of the most crucial decisions that has ever faced a woman.
What was that, Dad? Tell us about it.
Yes, who was it you're referring to?
Well, do you remember the Bible account of Esther?
Oh, yes, Esther. She was the Queen of Persia, but she was a Jewess.
And Haman tried to get all the Jews killed.
That's right.
Tell us about it, Dad.
Well, it's getting a little late, but under the circumstances, it might be good for us all. Why don't you sit down over here for a minute?
Come on, Gail. Here, sit by me. Come.
Now, this happened at a time in Israel's history when the Jews didn't have a very bright prospect, it's true. They were slaves to the Medes and Persians, but remember, Jehovah had already released them from Babylonian captivity, and Jerusalem had been restored, and true worship was being carried on there, so the Jews at that time, although many were still scattered throughout the Persian Empire, were free in the sense that they could serve their God without any serious opposition. Little did they know that things were going to happen that would shake the whole world they lived in, and that would bring all the Jews within the entire Persian Empire right up to the brink of complete annihilation.
You mean even the Jews in Jerusalem, Dad?
Well, Palestine was still a part of the Persian Empire, so undoubtedly this would affect all the Jews that lived at that time, and it came upon them suddenly, absolutely without warning. Now, here's the way that it all started. Mordecai, a Jew, had a cousin named Hadassah, and it came about that this beautiful young woman found herself faced with the opportunity of becoming the queen of all Persia. Little did this unknown Jewish girl realize that the step she was about to take would involve her in one of the most devilish intrigues that has ever been recorded, and that she, as a central figure in the development of this plot, would hold in her hand the lives of all the people who were the true seed of Abraham.
Shalom, my dear cousin.
And may you too have peace, my little Hadassah.
I am ready to go now, Mordecai. Any time that it pleases you to accompany me.
Ah, yes, my little one. Though your going grieves me very much, I am sure that it is Jehovah's will. It seems only yesterday that you came into my home as a frightened little girl and at such a tender age.
How I remember that day, Mordecai. When my mother and father died and left me alone, I felt my whole world crumbling around me. But since my father was your father's brother, they brought me to you, and you were so kind. Oh, I loved you from that first moment.
But now, you are no longer that frightened little girl. You're a young woman, and a very beautiful young woman.
Oh, Mordecai, do you really think the king will be pleased with me?
Ahasuerus is ruling as king from India to Ethiopia over 127 jurisdictional districts, my dear. But the king is also a man, and he is a man looking for not just a woman, but a woman that will be a queen.
But to be a queen?
You are such a woman, my little Hadassah. But whether you will please the king will depend much on you and how you conduct yourself in his household.
What do you mean?
Sit down for a moment, Hadassah. There's yet time before we leave. What I have said to you about your beauty is not flattery.
Oh, I know that, Mordecai. You have always been honest with me.
The harm, my dear, is not in recognizing your own beauty. The harm would be in assuming that somehow you yourself are responsible for it. What you have, Jehovah has given you. Accept your beauty for what it is.
Oh, I'm grateful to Jehovah for everything.
You are not so young that you have not already realized that your beauty of form and face will give you an easy entrance into any relationship with others. But you have never taken advantage of this, so that your modesty has become an even greater beauty to you than your physical features. But remember, my little myrtle blossom, beauty like yours can also become beauty like that of Vashti, who lost her place as queen.
What do you mean?
A woman's beauty can be a weapon. Used artfully, it can change the course of nations, either for bad or for good. Vashti chose to use her beauty for bad.
But do you think she realized that?
It's not for us to judge her. But when Ahasuerus sent for her to present herself before the princes of his jurisdictional district for whom he was holding a banquet, as you know, she refused to put in an appearance. Whatever prompted her motive, it was an unwise decision because it cost her her position as queen.
What a tragedy.
True. Still, Ahasuerus could do nothing else but put her aside because of the bad example she set for women throughout the entire Persian Empire.
Oh, I know it was just.
But now, the king is without a queen. And his ministers have suggested that he have all the most beautiful girls in the realm brought together so that he might select one from all their number that pleases him the most, and who he thinks will make a more suitable queen than Vashti.
But that is what frightens me, Mordecai. Do you really think that I could assume such a responsible position as
If there
that?
were any question in my mind, I would not now be taking you to the king's court. But when you enter the king's house, you must no longer represent yourself as a Jewess, for fear that some unnatural prejudice will be brought to bear against you, and you may lose out even before you have had an opportunity to present yourself to the king. From now on, you will no more be called Hadassah.
No?
No, you will be called Esther,
Esther?
a name more suited to the queen of all Persia.
Oh, I like that. But Queen Esther...
Now, listen carefully, Esther. You will be put under the care of Haggai, the guardian of all the young virgins. He's a wise man in the ways of the king's court. I have spoken to him about you, and he's expecting us. Listen to his counsel. And if you conduct yourself in the manner in which you have been taught, you should do well.
If Jehovah is willing.
Be discreet in everything you say and do. You will not need to push yourself forward. Put yourself in Jehovah's hands, and may he richly bless you, and may his will be done. Now come. Haggai is expecting us, and we must not try his patience.
And of all the young virgins that came in before the king, Esther was the one who was most pleasing in his eyes.
There will never be another queen like Esther.
She's the most beautiful of all women.
Tell me, Misha, did you ever see Vashti?
Yes, once. But she was a proud and haughty woman. But not Esther. Let me tell you, Keturah, my cousin Penina is one of the 7 selected young women from the king's house that Haggai gave her to attend her. And she told me that Esther is continually gaining favor in the eyes of everyone seeing her.
Was Penina at the banquet the king gave for Esther?
Oh, yes, as an attendant to the queen, of course. And all the princes and the king's servants were there. Why, the king even granted an amnesty for all the jurisdictional districts. And he kept giving presents according to the means of the king. But when the king put the royal headdress upon her head...
Misha, look.
It's one of the princes.
Bow before Haman, first prince of Persia. By order of King Ahasuerus, bow down.
That was Haman. He's been exalted above all the princes. And that loudmouth was Big Tsar, his attendant. He's almost as proud and hateful as Haman, if that could be possible.
Oh, Misha, do be careful. Don't talk like that. You know how he hates us Jews. Suppose someone would hear you.
Well, I can tell you, Keturah, there's no love lost on my part for that big bully Big Tsar. He was just a worthless fellow before he started to work for Haman. And he's still just as worthless. Only now he can get away with it. And anyone that he takes a dislike to...
But tell me, Haggai, what is Esther's manner now that she is queen? Has her disposition changed?
Well, of course, she has been transferred to the second house of the women in charge of Sheashgash, so I don't see her as much as I did. But Sheashgash is just as pleased with Esther as I am, and he is eager to do everything he can to help her and to serve her.
But the other women, how do they feel?
Well, I tell you something else, Mordecai.
Yes.
Sheashgash tells me that never has there been such peace and harmony in the house of the women as there has been since Esther has come among the
Oh,
conquerors.
I am glad to hear that.
Far from the rest of the women being jealous or envious of her, Esther is so sweet and kind to everyone that they all love her and are willing to do anything she asks. Anything. But look, here comes Hathach, personal attendant to the queen.
Yes, I know Hathach well. He's one of the king's most faithful eunuchs. May you have peace, Hathach. You bring good news, I hope.
I do indeed, Mordecai, and may you too have peace, and you, Haggai. Harbona, court official of King Ahasuerus, has sent me to inform you concerning the word that you spoke against Bigthan and Teresh.
Yes, and it was reported to the king by Esther.
That's right. It was brought to the king's attention by the queen, and a thorough investigation has been made.
Yes, Hathach. And what was the result?
As you know, these 2 court officials of the king, of the doorkeepers, became indignant and kept seeking to lay hand on the king. Now, the matter has been sought out, and their plot found out, and both of them got to be hanged on a stake. And this matter has been written in the book of the affairs of the days before the king.
May the king prosper.
But what is to be done for Mordecai for uncovering this plot?
I seek no reward, Haggai. Am I not in the service of the king, looking to his welfare and the welfare of his subjects?
That may very well be, Mordecai, but...
Harbona said nothing of a reward. He, too, questioned the matter, but feels that, as an attendant to the king, it is not his to say. However, Mordecai, he expects to refer the matter to Memucan, so that the princes themselves can speak in your behalf.
Prince Memucan, may her Mazda smile graciously upon you.
May you have peace, Haggai. And you too, Mordecai. You speak well, Hathach. And what Hathach has just reported is true, Mordecai. But what the king will do to reward you, we don't know. Nor is the time propitious for us to speak in your behalf.
Please do not feel any obligation whatsoever. What I did was just my duty. I would do it to save the life of any man, and certainly the life of the king. Would not any of his subjects do the same?
No, not all, I'm afraid, my good friend Mordecai. There are those in the kingdom who are ambitious. Bigthan and Teresh are not the only 2 who look with envy on the king. Please, Haggai and Hathach, could I speak to Mordecai alone?
As you wish, Prince Memucan.
You are a good man, Mordecai, and a valuable man to the king. The services that you've rendered in the king's gate are appreciated by all in the king's court.
I am a servant to the king.
But there is a matter, Mordecai, that troubles me deeply. Now, I know that others have talked to you day by day, and we are all concerned for the consequences of your attitude in this matter.
Speak, Memucan. What is it?
Well, it's in the matter of Haman, the one who has become second only to the king in authority in the kingdom. Now, as you know, the king has made a commandment that all the king's servants in the king's gate prostrate themselves to Haman, because he has exalted Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and put his throne above all the other princes in the kingdom.
Yes, I am aware of it.
But you, Mordecai, you refuse to bow to Haman, even though you're not one of the 7 princes. Now, you are a wise man, and you act discreetly in all matters except this one. Why do you persist in refusing to obey the commandment of the king?
In this one thing I must.
But why, Mordecai? Do you see my attendant standing over there?
Yes, I know him. He is Hilkiah.
Yes, Hilkiah the Jew. But let me tell you this, Mordecai. As much as Haman hates the Jews, he hates you even more. Why he should feel the way he does about the Jews, I cannot say. But I can understand why he would be incensed when you refuse to comply with the order of the king.
I appreciate your interest, Prince Memucan, and I treasure your counsel. I know you are seeking only to do me a service. But even though the king has commanded it, I cannot bow to Haman. Even if I lose my life, I cannot bow to Haman the Agagite.
But why, Mordecai? Why would you risk your life for such a little thing as to...
Mordecai, why are you continually sidestepping the commandment of the king?
I do not disobey the commandment of the king, Haman. I am a loyal subject of King Ahasuerus. All the king's orders I obey readily, and I keep the law of the Medes and the Persians in all details. But in this one matter, I cannot.
You do not need to tell me how you feel, Mordecai. I know your thoughts, and I know why you refuse to obey the commandment of the king in giving honor to the one whom the king has exalted above all the other princes. You are a Jew. I know you are a Jew. There are those who are close to me who have come to me and told me that you are a Jew. They have asked me whether your affairs would stand because you have insulted the king's law and because you seek to put yourself above even the person of the one whom the king has exalted. But you wait and see, Mordecai. You do not know what is ahead of you, but I do. I know what's in store for you and all the Jews. You'll see that I do not hold the position that I have in the king's court for nothing. So, you will not bow before Haman the Agagite. But you will, or my name is not Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite.
Oh, Mordecai, my worst fears are realized. I must hasten and summon the rest of the princes and see what can be done to prevent a disaster from occurring. I sincerely hope in the name of Ahura Mazda that we are not too late.
Oh, my lord, now you are indeed in sore straits. Haman's anger has burst forth, and what he will do, only Ahura Mazda knows. Only Ahura Mazda knows.
Mordecai, what have you done? What have you done? I knew that your senseless resistance to the king's orders would bring us all into difficulties. Now what will Haman do? Why can you not bow to Haman like everyone else? Are you so much better than he is? Why, we're only slaves to the Medes and Persians. Rightfully, we must bow to all of them. But Haman is next to the king himself. Besides, the king has commanded that we bow to him.
How can you so flagrantly violate a law of the king like this and not expect to bring down trouble on your head? But as if that were not enough, now you'll bring down trouble on all of us. You are a fool, Mordecai.
Watch your tongue. Don't you know that to speak abusively of a court official of the king is to call down evil on yourself?
Why must you insist on playing the prince yourself, Mordecai? Why? Why?
Hilkiah, my son, you are a Jew. You are a true son of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob. Your fathers were with Moses when Jehovah our God delivered us from Egypt. Can you not remember this?
But what has this to do with now, Mordecai? We are not in Egypt. We are not slaves of the Egyptians. We're under the law of the Medes and the Persians. Can you not understand that? And when the king makes a commandment, it must be obeyed.
All that you have said is true, Hilkiah. We are subjects of the king Ahasuerus and of the Medes and the Persians. And we must keep the law of the Medes and Persians just as long as Jehovah our God sees fit to leave us in this land. But when that law violates the law of our God, then we cannot obey the law of man.
Oh, you speak in riddles, Mordecai. You yourself bow to King Ahasuerus. You bow to Prince Memucan. Why, then, can you not bow to Haman? Why do you insist on bringing down trouble on all of our heads?
Hilkiah, listen to me, please. Let me refresh your mind, please, on something recorded in the book of Moses. Be patient now, Hilkiah, because this is my reason for not bowing before Haman the Agagite. When Jehovah the true God was leading our fathers out of Egypt, the Amalekites proceeded to come and fight against Israel in Rephidim. Jehovah now said to Moses, "Write this as a memorial in a book and propound it in Joshua's ears. I shall completely wipe out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens." And Moses proceeded to build an altar and to call its name Jehovah Nissi, saying, "Because a hand is against the throne of Jah, Jehovah will have war with Amalek from generation to generation."
But what has that to do with Haman?
Are you so ignorant of the law and of the history of Israel, my son? Do you not know that Agag, from whom Haman is a descendant, was an Amalekite? How can you, a Jew, a true son of Abraham, have any peace toward Amalek when they stand accursed before Jehovah our God? How can you prostrate yourself to this one who is a hater of Jehovah and who has lifted up his hand against the Most High? For Jehovah will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. No, Hilkiah, I will not bow to Haman, even though I lose my life for it.
And bring down wrath on the heads of all the rest of us, your brothers? Perhaps you are carrying this matter too far, Mordecai. How can we help ourselves? We are slaves of the Medes and the Persians. Surely Jehovah does not expect us to risk our lives under conditions like these.
Jehovah's law does not change, Hilkiah. And circumstances do not change the principles on which God's law is based. God's principles are everlasting. And when Jehovah recorded in his word as a memorial that he would blot out the name of Amalek, then certainly we as servants of the Most High God.
Look, the fire of the king!
Look, Mordecai, that was a Bagtha, one of the king's speediest couriers on one of the fastest horses. It must indeed be an important message in view of his haste.
Mordecai! Mordecai!
Yes, Harbona, what is it? You look like one who bears bad news.
I do indeed, Mordecai. The worst news possible. You know Haman has hated you and how he has vowed that he will avenge himself because you have not obeyed the king in bowing down before him.
Yes, Harbona.
Speak, Harbona. What is it? What has happened?
Haman has finally succeeded in having the king sign a decree against the Jews.
Alas.
Whoa!
Alas.
Our doom is sealed.
I do not know all the details, but I overheard Memucan and Karshina discussing it just a few moments ago. It seems that Haman has offered to pay over into the king's treasury 10,000 silver talents of his own wealth in order to expedite the matter.
Why, that's 30 million shekels.
Over 60 million derricks.
But what is the decree, Habona? Speak. What is that the king would have done to the Jews?
I do not know, but it must indeed be a fearful thing, because Memucan and Karshina were both extremely agitated.
Oh, I knew it! I knew it! Mordecai, you have brought the wrath of Haman on all of our heads. We're finished. How could you have been so thoughtless? You, the one who's been exalted over all the Jews in Persia as a prince. You, a court official, sitting in the king's gate. And now you've brought down on us calamity.
Let all loyal subjects of King Ahasuerus come near, and let all hear, even from India to Ethiopia, in all 127 jurisdictional districts. By the word of Ahasuerus the king, let all the king's satraps and the governors and the princes and all the people become ready for the 13th day of the 12th month to annihilate, to kill, and to destroy all the Jews, young men as well as old men, little ones and women, and to plunder the spoil of them. So it is written, and so it shall be in the name of Ahasuerus the king.
Remember that day? You'll not get off so lightly then. Not one of you.
This is Mordecai's doings. I knew that he would bring calamity on us by continually sidestepping the king's...
But we must stand together. Mordecai alone of all of us has had the courage to uphold Jehovah's law. Oh, may Jehovah forgive us and have mercy on us. May he turn back on the heads of our enemies the wrong that they would do to us.
You are a fool. A fool. Jehovah has forgotten us. He has left us to die at the hands of this Agagite Haman. What will we do? We're lost.
Oh,
we'll perish.
My poor people. May Jehovah, the God of Israel, have mercy on us.
Has Hathach returned?
No, my lady. He left some time ago, just as you ordered, and he had garments to clothe Mordecai with him when he left. My lady, why do you suppose that Mordecai would be sitting in front of the king's gate in sackcloth? He's a court attendant. What kind of trouble could anyone in so high a position have that he would go into such deep mourning?
I don't know what grieves him, Bilka, but my soul is troubled for him. Mordecai is a good and a just man. It must be that some serious problem has arisen. But perhaps Hathach can persuade him to arise from the dust and bathe himself, and put on the garments that I've sent him. Oh, but quickly, Varuna. That sounds like someone at the entrance. See who it is.
As you say, my lady. Hathach has indeed returned, my lady.
Oh, quickly, what did he say?
He reports, my lady, that Mordecai has refused to be comforted. Refused? Indeed, he has returned the garments which you sent to him.
Oh, no.
Returned the garments?
Then it must indeed be a grievous matter. What could it be to trouble Mordecai so severely? Quickly, Varuna, have Hathach brought in at once.
Yes, my lady.
Hathach, Mordecai did not listen or accept the garments?
No, he did not, my lady. My lord is sorely disturbed. He refuses to be comforted. Never have I seen a man so sorely troubled as is my lord Mordecai.
Then you must not pause for a moment, Hathach. You must return to him immediately, that I might know what this means and what this is all about. Go at once, and do not loiter on the way. Now return to him immediately. Please go.
Yes, my lady.
I don't understand. Mordecai must be
Oh, my
sorely
lady,
troubled.
what a calamity this must be.
Well, I'm certain that it's a matter of deep concern, or Mordecai would not depart from his duties at the king's gate. nor would he sit at the gate of the king in sackcloth unless he were indeed sorely troubled.
I just don't understand.
Just isn't like
Mordecai is a
Mordecai.
just man. It may be that someone has come to him with a matter of grave injustice, and that's caused him to grieve as he is.
Well, it might be. But it does not seem like Mordecai. He would be more inclined to busy himself with the case and try to solve the problem. You see, Mordecai is very concerned in the interests of the king. He's even risked his own life and his own position in an effort to defend the justice of the law and even the king's life.
Well, I would not like to trouble my lady, but I am fearful that not all in the king's court feel as we do toward Mordecai.
Yes.
I have heard it spoken quietly amongst some of the king's servants that he has powerful enemies at court. But that is not difficult to understand. An honest man like Mordecai is always hated and resented, and I am sure that many would envy his position in the king's gate.
Well, whatever it is, we will soon know. Hathak should not be long. He knows the matter is urgent, and I am sure that... Oh, but quickly, Varuna. I think there is someone at the entrance. Run, see if it is Hathak who has come with news from Mordecai.
At once, my lady.
Quickly, Hathak, what is the news from Mordecai?
I ran all the way, my lady. Oh, please forgive me. But Mordecai is indeed sorely troubled, and with great cause. He has received news of the worst kind, and not only Mordecai has received the news. The king has sealed with his own signet ring and published a writing at the instance of Haman the Agagite.
Haman.
And now it's been carried to all the jurisdictional districts by the fastest and speediest couriers of the king.
Oh.
But what is it, Hathak? Why should it trouble Mordecai so?
Because it involves Mordecai. But not only Mordecai, my lady, but all of Mordecai's people.
All of his people?
Why, I've just learned, as apparently Haman learned some time ago, that Mordecai is of the seed of Abraham, a Jew. And Mordecai has refused to bow before Haman, and according to the king's commandment, because, and these are his words, my lady, because the God of the Jews is at enmity with the people of Amalek from generation to generation.
Haman is an animal.
Because of this, Haman, in his rage, has vowed that he will annihilate not only Mordecai, but all of Mordecai's people, all the Jews.
Oh, my God. What is to become of
And
it?
here is a copy of the writing, my lady.
The writing.
Which Mordecai has copied out, and which he has sent to you in order that you might know yourself just what it is that has been purposed toward the Jews. But that's not all, my lady. Mordecai has charged me strictly to deliver to you this commandment. Forgive me, my lady, but these are the words of Mordecai himself to you.
But this means annihilation for us. On Adar the 13th. All of the Jews will perish at the hands of the Persians.
Poor people. Oh, my people.
Oh, how can this be? How can Jehovah allow a thing like this to happen to his own people? Hathak, did Mordecai say nothing further?
Yes, my lady. He specifically commanded me to tell you, my lady, that you yourself were to come in to the king and implore favor of him for your own people.
The queen. One of my own people?
You two are also of the seed of Abraham?
The queen, a Jewess? But they're a slave people. And now this edict. Come into the king. Me, unbidden. Oh, how can I? What is Mordecai thinking? What is he requiring of me? Hathak.
Yes, my lady.
You must return to Mordecai, and you must tell him that I've received the writing from his hand, and I have read it. And my heart is broken because of what has come upon our people. And were I not in the house of the king, I, too, would be in sackcloth. But this thing that he has asked me, it's too much. All the king's servants and the people of the king's jurisdictional districts are aware that as regards any man or woman who comes into the king in the inner courtyard who is not called, well, his one law is to have them put to death. Only in the case the king should hold out to him the golden scepter, then he would certainly stay alive. But as for me, I have not been called to come into the king now for 30 days. How then can I do this thing that Mordecai has asked of me? Go, Hathak, quickly.
Yes, my lady.
Oh, Esther, how can you? Oh, my lady, what is to become of us? Why would Mordecai ask you to risk your life?
Is this not a most dangerous course to take, my lady? How will the king view it, for you to come in unbidden? Might he not interpret it as a willful spirit?
Yes, like that of Vashti.
And you are so unlike that haughty woman.
But what is to become of us Jews?
I, too, grieve for the Jews.
But to ask the queen to sacrifice herself.
It doesn't seem like Mordecai to do this thing. And why would Haman want to kill all the Jews?
Yes, why? But you, my lady, why would Mordecai ask you to go into the king?
Why?
What did he mean when he said, you must implore favor of him for your own people? Could he have known?
That I, too, am a Jew?
But you never said. No one ever told us.
I know. Nevertheless, I, too, am of the seed of Abraham. Mordecai is my cousin.
The queen.
But what Mordecai has asked me to do, I am certain seems right in his eyes. Never before have I questioned Mordecai in anything that he's asked me to do. Mordecai he's like a father to me. He came to be my caretaker at the time my father and mother died. And his kindness to me has exceeded that of my own father. But this thing that he's asked me to do,
Oh, my lady, but think. You, too, come under the decree of Haman. You, too, are subject to annihilation on Adar 13.
But how could the queen herself be subject to such a decree as this? No one would dare.
But if you were to go in before the king unbidden, you might lose your life anyway, for nothing, before you had an opportunity.
There must be another way. There must be. Surely Mordecai will reconsider. Surely he will not expect you to.
Do not excite yourselves, my dear ones. I'm certain that Jehovah will find a way. Mordecai has never failed to have Jehovah's blessing. And I am certain that in this instance, too, something will be done.
But if you go into the king unbidden, of what value would your life be then to your people?
Oh, quick, I think Hathach has returned. Yes, Hathach. What is it that Mordecai has answered?
Excuse me, please, my lady. But I have spoken to Mordecai just as you have commanded. And this is what I said in that. Just as you have put the words into my mouth.
Yes, Hathach, and what is his answer?
His words were the same as before, my lady. They were not altered.
And there's no hope.
But he must know that I am helpless to assist. Why does he further charge me to go into the king to implore favor of him for my people? Surely, even though the king were to send for me, he's unaware that I am a Jewess.
He doesn't know.
Would he not indeed be angry to learn of this? But if I go to him unbidden, and then in addition reveal to him that I have, as it will seem to him, deceived him, my heart is torn for my people. How can I bear it when I must look upon the injury that will find my people? How can I bear it when I must look upon the destruction of my beloved relative? How can this that Mordecai requests, how can this be the way?
Oh, Esther. Oh, my queen.
Oh, Hathach, surely you did not make it plain to him. Did you tell him that I have not been called to come into the king now for 30 days?
Please, my lady. Excuse me, my lady. But I spoke to him all the words that you commanded me, and these are the words of Mordecai just as he spoke them to me. These are the words that he has commanded that I rehearse in your ears. Do not imagine within your own soul the king's household will escape any more than all the other Jews.
Oh, no.
For if you are altogether silent at this time, relief and deliverance themselves will stand up for the Jews from another place. But as for you and your father's house, you people will perish. And who is there, knowing whether it is for a time like this that you have attained to royal dignity?
Well, then go. Go then and speak to Mordecai. And give him this reply to his request. Tell him that Esther the queen has said to go and gather all the Jews that are to be found in Shushan and have them fast in my behalf. Neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night and day, and I, too, with my young women. I shall fast likewise, and upon that I shall come into the king, which is not according to the law, and in the case I must perish, I must perish.
Oh, no.
And so it is, my lord the king, that the rulers of Lydia are petitioning the king for an extension of their grant, giving them the rights to continue to draw on the resources of Syria for the building program which the king himself has authorized.
Petition granted. What next, Memucan?
An envoy from India seeks an audience with the king, my lord.
And what is his request?
He comes with gifts, my lord, and has entered this petition which I hold in my hand. The envoy would like to speak to you in order that he might extend to you the allegiance of those whom he represents, and in order that he might outline in some more detail their proposal.
Bring him in. I'll hear his case.
Harbona, bring in the envoy from India.
At once, Prince Memucan.
Memucan, read to me from the scroll, and see what is the petition being entertained by the envoy from India. And how is your lord Mithrona, the ruler of the jurisdictional district from which you came?
If it please the king, may Ahura Mazda look upon you with favor. May he grant you many days of peace and health. Mithrona is well, your majesty. It is at his earnest petition, and solely in the interest of the mighty ruler of Persia, that I've come here this...
Memucan, who is it that has approached to the king and is standing in the inner courtyard opposite the entrance of the king's house? Why, it is Esther the queen.
Come, Esther, my queen. Come near, in order that I might hear what you have to say. Come, my beloved queen. See, I have extended to you the golden scepter, for you have found favor in my eyes.
Oh, look, my lord the king. Your maidservant is at your feet.
What do you have, O Esther, my queen? And what is your request? To the half of the kingship, let it even be given to you.
If to the king it does seem good, let the king with Haman come today to the banquet that I have made for him.
A banquet? And you'd have Haman come also?
If to the king it does seem good, and if I have found favor in your eyes.
It does indeed seem good. Your request is granted, O Esther. You men, have Haman act quickly on the word of Esther.
As you say, O king.
Ah, Zeresh, my wife, and my oldest and youngest sons. How good it is that you have come. Have the others arrived as yet? I want you all to share with me in the grandest blessings that Ahura Mazda has yet showered upon me.
Truly, Father, you must indeed have good news for us. Your daily anger and gloom are gone this evening, and there's a glow in your eyes.
My eyes only reflect the laughter that is in my heart, Dolphin, my son.
Oh, I know, Father. That cursed Jew, Mordecai, was forced to bow to you today.
Nothing could bring more joy to this household than to see that Jew impaled alive, squirming on a stake, his skin being slowly peeled off bit by
Or
bit.
to see him on the rack and hear his wretched pleas for mercy.
Or crying out to his God, Jehovah, to save him.
His God? Ahura Mazda's the only true God. Were not the Jews abandoned by their God years ago? And now they're slaves to us Persians.
Persians, you agagite.
Though that Jewish dog Mordecai still tries to play the prince.
But not for long, Aridai. The Jews are as good as finished, annihilated, killed and destroyed. Adar 13 is their fatal day.
Mother, what a bold plan! How's it done?
With this ring.
The ring.
And a writing already sent to the farthest part of the realm.
The king's signet ring.
You are truly great, Haman, my beloved husband.
But that is not all, my queen. Esther the queen brought in with the king to the banquet that she made no one but me. And tomorrow also I am invited to her with the king.
Now even the queen has singled you out of all the princes to do you this great honor. Surely your cup is full.
You have indeed been exalted to the very pinnacle, Father.
None of it suits me as long as I am seeing Mordecai the Jew sitting in the king's gate.
Adar the 13th is too far away. How can you continue to contain yourself as long as Mordecai sits at the gate of the king and refuses to do you honor.
Why do you continue to restrain yourself, Haman? Are you not the most powerful man in the kingdom? Who is there that could stand against you? Do not tolerate this hateful Jew another day, Haman. Hang him.
Good. That's the thing, Father. Don't hold back your hand. Hang him.
Let them make a stake 50 cubits high. Then, in the morning, say to the king that they should hang Mordecai on it. He will listen to you. Then go in with the king to the queen's banquet in a joyful mood.
Well spoken, Zeresh and my noble sons. That is what shall be done. Dolphin, see that the sun does not set before the beginning of this work is undertaken. And tomorrow, when I return from the banquet, I shall expect to see Mordecai dangling from the stake. But listen, I hear my other sons arriving. Let us go into the feast and rejoice together. I must tell them all the good news.
Why is it that sleep eludes me tonight? I can't understand it. After a banquet like that of Esther's, with the best of food and wine, usually I'm asleep before my feet are lifted to the couch. What is it that keeps troubling me? Harbona.
Yes, my lord.
Have the books of the records of the affairs of the times brought in, Harbona. Let us make a search at once so I can get this matter settled and get some sleep before tomorrow. I don't want to be drowsy when I again recline at the banquet with my Queen Esther.
At once, my lord.
What force disturbs my sleep? Some strange power will not allow my eyes to close until a purpose is accomplished. But in my heart, I do not know what it is. Why tonight? Have I withheld my hand from doing good when justice called for action? Are the gods displeased? Will Ahura Mazda withhold from me a blessing if I do not right some wrong? Some unrelenting thought hovers on the border of my conscious mind, but it will not come.
Here is the scribe, my lord the king.
Read to me from the book of the records of the affairs of the times, scribe.
If it please my lord the king, where shall I begin?
Go back a few years, it matters not. Then we shall go back further into the records if needs be.
Thank you, my lord the king. Now it happened in the year that Esther was made queen, that Bigthan and Teresh, two court officials of the king of the doorkeepers, became indignant and kept seeking to lay hand on King Ahasuerus. And the thing came to be known to Mordecai, an attendant of the king sitting in the king's gate. And he immediately told Esther the queen. In turn, Esther talked to the king in Mordecai's name. So the matter was sought out and eventually found out, and both of them got to be hanged on a stake.
Ah, yes, I remember. Those two good-for-nothing doorkeepers. How grateful I was to Esther and Mordecai. But why do you stop reading, scribe?
Excuse me, my lord the king, but there the account ends. There is no further entry.
No further entry? What distinction and great thing has been done to Mordecai for this, Harbona?
Nothing has been done with him, my lord the king.
Now it is clear to me. The gods are displeased. A deed of loyalty neglected. Something must be done. What is to be done to the man in whose honor the king himself has taken delight? What is to be done to such a man, Harbona? Harbona!
Yes, my lord.
But this is a matter that cannot be treated lightly. This man Mordecai has saved the life of the king. He should indeed be honored. And yet his reward is long overdue. I must have counsel. Who's about at this time of the morning? Memucan? No, he's old. Karshina? No, he was indisposed yesterday. Harbona, who's that horseman in the courtyard at this early hour?
If it please my lord the king, I have just observed from the window Haman is standing in the courtyard.
Haman, you say? At this hour? How fitting that he has arrived when I need him most. Have him come in at once.
Immediately, my lord.
Now I shall have this matter attended to, and perhaps the wrath of the gods will pass.
Ah, my lord the king, may Ahura Mazda bring you great blessings this day, and smile upon you.
Draw
with
near to
pleasure.
me, Haman. Draw near to me. You are welcome above words.
I am indeed grateful that I can be permitted this audience so early in the day, my lord the king. It is most propitious that you have asked me in.
It has been a night of troubled thoughts, Haman, and sleep has escaped me. But I would have your counsel, Haman.
Oh, your favor is as the breath of life to me, O mighty king.
There's a question that I would ask you. It is this. What is to be done to the man in whose honor the king himself has taken a delight?
To whom would the king take delight in rendering an honor more than to me? As for the man in whose honor the king himself has taken a delight, let them bring royal apparel with which the king does clothe himself, and a horse upon which the king does ride, and on the head of which the royal headdress has been put. And let there be a putting of the apparel and the horse into the charge of one of the king's noble princes. And they must clothe the man in whose honor the king himself has taken delight, and they must make him ride on the horse in the square of the city. And they must call out before him, "This is how it is done to the man in whose honor the king himself has taken a delight."
Quickly, Haman, take the apparel and the horse, just as you have said, and do that way to Mordecai the Jew who is sitting in the king's gate. Do not let anything go unfulfilled of all that you have spoken.
Mordecai the Jew?
Yes, Mordecai the Jew who sits in the king's gate. Now go, quickly, Haman.
As you say, my lord.
For now my sleep will indeed be pleasurable.
Mordecai the Jew. Oh, that this should happen to me. Me, Haman the son of Hamedata the Agagite. Oh.
I cannot believe my ears. Haman, the noble prince. Windolphin came running in to tell us he had seen you. You leading about that Jew.
Father, did you take the king's apparel?
Yes, the king's apparel.
And clothe Mordecai the Jew?
Even so.
And the king's own horse?
Yes, oh yes, and made Mordecai ride thereon. There was no way of escape. Refusal meant instant death.
And did you cause that Jew to ride through the streets of the city?
Yes, all that the king commanded.
Who ever heard of such a thing?
You're mad, Father. You, who would play the king.
Your eldest son has said it, Haman. You. Haman, the prince, the Agagite, who thought to hang the Jew today, has proclaimed before his foe, "This is how it is done to the man in whose honor the king himself has taken a delight." Have you really done this? Or is this but the madness of your feverish mind?
Oh, this I have done. A herald of my own humiliation. Oh, if I had but torn out my tongue instead.
Yes. Why did you not tear out your eyes by the roots rather than witness the exaltation of
Oh, the plague on you, woman, and on all you noble sons. Why do you pierce me with your malicious questions and increase the tortures of my soul?
Well deserved they are. You fool! Did you not yourself show to the king the way to your humiliation before the Jew? Why did you in your folly exalt yourself before the king, saying in your heart, "To whom would the king take delight in rendering an honor more than to me?" Was ever such abasement heard of? Haman, if it is from the seed of the Jews that Mordecai is, before whom you have started to fall, you will not prevail against him. You will without fail fall before him.
Listen! Who's coming?
2 riders, coming in great haste. It's Harbona and another official of the king.
Harbona's dismounting. He's coming across the courtyard.
Is Prince Haman here?
Here I am. Enter and speak your message.
Prince Haman, the king has sent us to bring you in haste to the banquet that Queen Esther has prepared for the king. We must leave at once. The king is waiting your arrival.
Oh, Esther, my queen, your wit sparkles like the jewels in your crown. Is it not so, Haman? Have you a good word for the queen?
Oh, I do indeed, most noble lord the king. But her beauty puts her gems to shame.
Wit and beauty do not prevail to chase your gloom, Haman. Does some secret sorrow gnaw at your heart?
A sorrow? Oh, no, not so, oh, my queen. Your servant only appears dull and lifeless in contrast to the charm and grace of your presence. Sadness cannot dwell near you.
Your words begin to have the old familiar ring. You gladden my heart, Haman. I too had thought a shadow covered you, but as you say, the brightness of my queen makes all other things seem dim. Here, Haman, let us drink to Esther, queen in the realm of loveliness.
To Esther, the glory of the great kingdom of Ahasuerus.
And now, Queen Esther, the time has come for your request. What is your petition, O Esther? Let it even be given to you. And what is your request? To the half of the kingdom let it even be done.
If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, and if to the king it does seem good, let there be given me my own soul at my petition, and my people at my request.
Your soul and the lives of your people?
For we have been sold, I and my people, to be annihilated, killed, destroyed. Now, if it were to be men slaves and maid servants that we had been sold, I would have kept silent. But the distress is not appropriate when with the damage to the king.
Who is this? And where is this one who has emboldened himself to do that way?
The man, the adversary and enemy, is this bad Haman.
Haman!
It is even so. Look how he cowers and cringes with guilt in your presence.
Haman! Haman has sold you and your people to be slain. Oh, my soul, that such treachery could be.
It is true, O king, for I am a Jewess, and Haman has given over to death all the Jews in your kingdom. If we had been any longer...
My lord the king, I told you of a people who were rebellious against your laws.
He bears false witness, O king. The Jews have labored to your profit and have enriched your kingdom. It is only that we do not worship Bahar or Mazda, but we are faithful to Jehovah, the true God of Israel. And for this cause and this alone, Mordecai the Jew refused to worship Haman. So Haman sought and found a way utterly to destroy us all, because he hates Mordecai.
Mordecai? The man whom the king himself delights to honor?
Yes.
Haman, this has gone too far. You have pushed the king beyond the limits of his endurance. I must go into the garden.
Oh, no, my lord the king, no, please. Oh, Esther, my queen, what is this thing you have done? Be merciful to me. How can your tender eyes and sweet lips speak so harshly to me? I am your abject servant, Esther, my queen. See, I'm on my knees to you. How was I to know that you too were among these people that are to be annihilated? Esther, my queen, you know that I meant you no harm. You must speak to the king in my behalf. He will listen to you in everything, please.
Haman, leave me. I command you.
Oh, Esther, my queen, not until you show me mercy. Think of my life. I am the first prince of all Persia. Think what you have done. You must plead with the king.
You are mad. Leave me. Leave me this instant. Harbona.
Haman, you good-for-nothing son of a rebellious maid. Is there also to be a raping of the queen with me in the house?
No, my lord. No, please, my king. No.
Harbona, take my ring from his finger.
No.
And take him out of my sight.
If it please my lord the king, there is also a stake that Haman has made for Mordecai, who had spoken good concerning the king. It stands in Haman's house 50 cubits high.
You men, Hang him on it!
No! Mercy!
If it please my lord the king, you are well rid of Haman. It was common talk within his own household that he coveted your throne.
His name is dead. I do not want to hear it again.
As you say, O king.
Now tell me, Memucan, what shall be done for the seed of the Jews so that they do not perish?
O king, there is nothing that can be done. Your commandment has gone forth that the Jews be annihilated, and the laws of the Medes and Persians cannot be changed.
But some way must be found. Have you consulted the other princes, Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, and others?
I have indeed, my lord the king, but, excuse me, O king, there is no way. The laws of the Medes and Persians cannot be altered. The Jews will be consumed and destroyed, for Haman's writing was sealed with your own ring.
As my soul lives, Esther comes again into the inner courtyard unbidden. But look, Memucan, she is in distress.
Yes, my lord, I see.
Oh, Esther, my dear queen, what troubles you? Come forward and state your request.
Oh, my king. If I have ever found favor in your eyes, and if to the king it does seem good, please remember my own soul and my people. And turn away, please, the badness of Haman the Agagite and his scheme that he has schemed against the Jews. If to the king it does seem good, and if I have favor before him, and the thing is proper before the king, and I am good in his eyes, let it be written to undo the written documents, that scheme of Haman, which he wrote to destroy the Jews that are in all the king's jurisdictional districts. For how can I bear it when I must look upon the injury that will find my people? And how can I bear it when I must look upon the destruction of my loved one?
Oh, Esther, my queen. The writing cannot be undone. It has become the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot change.
No.
What is written against the Jews is written.
But, my lord the king, the true God has the power to provide a way of escape. And there is one in your kingdom in whom is his spirit, an excellent spirit of wisdom.
Of whom do you speak?
Of Mordecai, the Jew who is of my relatives. He is my cousin, and he became my caretaker when I was just a child.
Mordecai? The man whom I have delighted to honor?
Yes, O king. He stands at the door. Will you receive him?
Harbona! Let Mordecai come in to me.
At once, O king.
So Mordecai, my faithful servant who saved the life of the king, was father to you, Esther?
Yes, he loved me and cared for me as though I were his only child, rather than a cousin.
To love you is not difficult for anyone, my Esther. But I am again pleased to honor Mordecai. Have Mordecai come in. Come forward, Mordecai. Look, the house of Haman I've given to Esther. And him they have hanged on a stake for reason that he thrust out his hand against the Jews. And now you, Mordecai. What would you do to provide a way of escape for the Jews?
O king, a plan has been born in the anguish of my soul. But it will require your power.
My power? No, Mordecai. It shall be your power. Here's my ring which I've taken from Haman. I give it to you. Now you yourselves write in behalf of the Jews according to what is good in your own eyes, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For a writing that is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, it is not possible to undo. And now, Mordecai, what is it that you would do?
If to the king it does seem good, and if it pleases the king, let the king grant to the Jews who are in all the different cities to congregate themselves and stand for their souls, to annihilate and kill and destroy all the force of the people that were showing hostility to them in the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And if it pleases the king, let a copy of the writing be given as law throughout all the jurisdictional districts, published to all the people, that the Jews should be ready for this day to avenge themselves upon their enemies.
So be it. It is well spoken. Memucan, arrange for the secretaries to write according to Mordecai's dictation, and let the couriers themselves, riding post horses used in the royal services, go forth. Let them be urged forward, being moved with speed by the king's words, and let the law itself be given out in Shushan, the castle.
Oh, Queen Esther, how different are the prospects of this Adar 13th from what we first imagined.
Ah, yes, Penina. Jehovah has truly blessed our people in Mordecai.
Oh, and in you too, my lady.
Oh, yes, my lady. When I saw your courage in going into the king unbidden, I asked myself, would I have that faith in my God Vishnu, the preserver, or that love for my people?
And too, oh, Queen, if you had perished, so would we all.
But I knew I couldn't have done what you did. Now, since the writing of Mordecai has gone out, I too have become a Jewess.
Listen, oh, Queen, the sound of fighting, it's getting nearer.
What does it mean, my lady?
I don't know, Penina. Call Hathach.
At once, my lady.
It is good, Varuna, my dear, to hear you speak of your newfound faith in Jehovah. Oh, he surely is a God of saving acts.
Here I am, O Queen. What is your wish?
Oh, the sound of fighting, Hathach. What does it mean?
We don't know yet, O Queen. But you need have no fear. No enemy of the Jews could find his way in here. You are completely surrounded by your loyal friends and supporters.
Never has Jehovah our God shown himself as strongly in our favor, O Queen.
Oh, the protective guards outside your quarters look as stalwart as a young army.
Oh, yes. The king has stationed the finest soldiers of his personal bodyguard around the queen's house. All of them are loyal to the king and to the Jews.
Look, even the Princes Memucan and Karshina have sent armed men of their own attendants.
You've all been a great blessing to me, and a genuine comfort on this fateful day.
Excuse me, O Queen, but Mordecai is waiting outside. I was just about to announce his arrival.
Oh, Hathach, show him in at once.
He's even at the door, O Queen.
Oh, Mordecai, how good it is to see you. I was so fearful for your safety.
And I for yours, my little Hadassah. Although I knew you were well surrounded by loyal soldiers of the king.
But what of our people throughout the entire realm? Are they really to stand in their own defense, Mordecai? What do they have? How can they protect themselves?
We do not know for sure. But in all the jurisdictional districts, the Jews have gathered together in their cities to lay hand on those seeking their injury. And it seems that the dread of the Jews has fallen upon all the peoples.
But is there anyone to back them up, to stand for them and fight?
We are confident of all the king's soldiers stationed in their garrisons in the cities, even the princes of the jurisdictional districts, and the satraps and the governors and the doers of the business that belongs to the king have arranged to assist the Jews because of the writing that the king has sent out to all the people.
Oh, the sound of the fighting is getting strong, Mordecai.
Yes, the enemies of the Jews have entrenched themselves, particularly in Shushan the castle. But the Jews have taken the initiative, and the sound of fighting that you hear is the sound of our people, and those who have joined themselves to us avenging themselves on our enemies. Listen. The sound of fighting has changed to a joyful sound.
Varuna, please see who it is that would enter.
Yes, my lady.
Oh, my lord Mordecai, this has indeed been a day of exultation for the Jews. Already hundreds of our enemies have died at our hands. And also Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Espatha, and the other of the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, have been killed. And my lady, Queen Esther, there is already great rejoicing in the castle of Shushan. But, Mordecai, still many of our enemies remain. They have withdrawn themselves, and it is now late in the day. What shall we do?
The report is good news, Hilkiah. But as for the rest of the enemies of the Jews, they must not be left, because in that way our victory would not be complete. Esther, you must speak to the king.
Ah, my Queen Esther, Mordecai, you too. The Jews have gained a great victory in Shushan today. In Shushan, the castle, the Jews have killed, and there's been a destroying of 500 men, and the 10 sons of Haman. In the rest of the jurisdictional districts of the king, Mordecai, what have they done?
Word has not yet reached us, my lord the king. But my people were well prepared. They were gathered together in their cities, and our little ones and women were well defended.
There is but one thing yet, O king.
And what is your petition, Queen Esther? Let it even be given to you. And what is your further request? Let it be done.
If to the king it does seem good, let it be granted tomorrow also to the Jews that are in Shushan to do according to the law today, and let the 10 sons of Haman be hanged upon the stake that was prepared for Mordecai, and on which Haman was hanged.
Let it be done that way tomorrow. Mordecai, give the law out in Shushan. The carcasses of Haman's 10 sons are to be hanged, and the Jews in Shushan are to gather themselves together also tomorrow, the 14th day of the month Adar, in order that their victory might be complete. And then let them proclaim a feast throughout the realm, and let there be a great rejoicing among the people.
Oh, Mordecai, my lord, what a blessing it has been to our people to have you in position second to King Ahasuerus.
Hilkiah is right, Mordecai. Your name has indeed become great amongst the Jews, and delightsome to the multitude of our brothers, for you have done nothing but work good for our people.
Please forgive me for doubting you when you refused to bow before Haman. Now I know what it means to put faith in our God Jehovah. Never again will I doubt his word or the ability of the true God to carry out his commandments.
You have spoken well, Hilkiah. And now lest all of the Jews forget, and this day fade from our memories, it shall be made a writing, and written in documents to all the Jews that are in the jurisdictional districts of King Ahasuerus, the nearby and the distant ones, to impose upon them the obligation to be regularly holding the 14th day of the month Adar and the 15th day of it in each and every year, to hold them as days of banqueting and rejoicing, and sending portions to one another and of gifts to the poor people, because Jehovah our God has brought this great salvation to his people.
Boy, that sure was exciting, wasn't it? And that sure was a narrow escape for all the Jews. But I'm glad old Haman got hung. He sure was mean, wasn't he?
Yes, but Esther wasn't afraid of him.
I thought maybe Hilkiah was going to get killed, too.
Why?
Well, because he was fighting against Mordecai.
Yes, but he turned around. He supported Mordecai and joined in fighting the enemies of the Jews.
That's right, Peter, but he could very well have lost his life. If he hadn't had faith that Jehovah was backing Mordecai and that Jehovah himself would fight for the Jews, he could have lost his life along with many of those who were enemies of the Jews.
Did the Jews fight among themselves?
Well, perhaps. The Bible only says there was great confusion in Shushan the castle, but Esther's bold action and Jehovah's favor brought unity to the faithful Jews, which saved them. And they were able to stand and fight for their lives, and Jehovah gave them the victory.
Of course, this is all an important prophetic drama of our day, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, of course, that's our very first consideration. But it's getting late tonight, so I'm not going into details now. But what I want you both to do, Gail and Peter, is to look it up in the Watchtower and give me a report on it. It's in the July 15th, 1967 Watchtower. The fulfillment of this drama played a very important part in the modern history of Jehovah's people, and you should know about it. Now, you study it carefully, because I'm going to ask you some questions on it.
Oh, all right. Sure, Dad. But what would have happened if Esther hadn't gone to the king to save the Jews?
Well, we don't know, but just as Mordecai said, deliverance would have come from another source, but Esther and her house would have perished.
Does that mean if we didn't stand together with God's people that we might perish?
Certainly. Now, God isn't going to act for us if we're not in unity with his organization. Suppose some Jew had decided to stand by himself when the Persians came up against them on Adar 13. What kind of a chance would he have had?
Oh, he would have got killed.
Very likely. But the Jews, according to the account in Esther, banded together. And they stood up together in their own defense, and it was because of their unity, and because they were acting in harmony with the provision that God had made for their salvation, that they were able to escape with their lives. Now, Gail, suppose we find ourselves in the situation where suddenly we're called upon to, well, let's say, go underground.
You mean like they do in some countries, where they can't even go from door to door?
Yes, and the meetings have to be moved from place to place, too.
Oh, I see. Like theirs in our book study. If we had to give messages to one another in order to know where to go to have our meetings, we couldn't be mad at each other, could we?
No, son, and that's the point. If we don't have love for our brothers, we might be inclined not to help them in time of serious need. If we did that, we would endanger our own lives, too, because Jesus said, if anyone hates his brother,
he's in danger of Gehenna.
Exactly.
But it isn't easy to look at things that way, Father, when we're not actually faced with circumstances like that.
No, it isn't. But that's all the more of a test to us. That's why we can't allow ourselves to get into the kind of thinking that Armageddon is still a long way off and there's no need to be concerned about it. But it isn't just a matter of saving our lives and the nearness of Armageddon that should cause us to feel this way about our brothers. There's a much more compelling reason than that.
What do you mean?
Well, let's look at it like this, Gail. How do you suppose Mordecai and Esther felt about Haman, actually?
Well, I'd imagine they would hate him very much.
Yes, they would, and with reason. Now, not only was he an Amalekite and therefore condemned by God, but he was undoubtedly a very proud man, a man who was so vicious and deceitful that he would destroy the entire people of Israel in order to gain his vengeance against Mordecai for not bowing to him. Now, you might wonder how a man like that could ever have a resurrection.
Do you mean Haman is going to be resurrected?
Well, we don't know. It isn't for us to say. If some of the pharaohs of Egypt and kings of other countries in ancient times are expected back, well, perhaps even Haman will be. But whether Haman himself comes back or not, certainly others of the Amalekites will. Now, what do you think the Jews are going to feel about these people?
What do you mean?
Well, now remember, Jehovah had issued a judgment against the Amalekites, and he said there would be enmity between him and the Amalekites from generation to generation.
Wouldn't that mean that the Amalekites are not going to come back?
No, it doesn't mean that, because Jehovah can bring them back if he sees fit as individuals, and as individuals they will have every opportunity to live under his righteous new system of things.
Boy, that sure would be tough, wouldn't it?
Well, what are you thinking of, son?
Well, if the Amalekites come back and the Jews are there, they're sure not going to like each other, are they?
Well, that's just the point. Now, Jehovah entered this judgment against the Amalekites, as he said, from generation to generation.
Well, that certainly doesn't mean forever, though, does it?
No. After Armageddon, this decree will not be in effect anymore. All of the things done by those people will be forgiven them because they have paid for them with their lives. Going down into death, they've wiped the slate clean as far as their own sins are concerned, and when they return, they will now be in a position to gain God's approval and go on into everlasting life.
But that isn't going to change the way they feel about each other, is it?
Well, maybe not at first. But do you think God could give the Amalekites life everlasting and the Jews life everlasting if they didn't overcome the feeling that they had had for each other?
Say, he sure couldn't, could he? Do you mean they're going to have to learn not to hate each other anymore?
Well, what else? Of course it means that. It doesn't make any difference what a person has felt towards anyone else. When he comes back in the resurrection and Jehovah holds out to him an opportunity for life, he's going to have to forget the way he feels and learn to live at peace with that person, to become his brother, or he'll not be granted a place in God's everlasting kingdom.
I never thought of that. That means if Haman and Esther and Mordecai all come back, they're really going to have to learn to love each other if they're all going to get life.
Well, there certainly can't be hatred among those who are living at the end of the 1,000 years, can there?
No, of course not. So they'll have to forgive each other and learn to live together in peace, won't they?
Exactly. It's going to be a very difficult thing for those people who lived then and did as they did to overcome the pattern of thinking which they carried with them throughout their entire lives, but they're going to have to learn to do it if they're ever going to receive life at God's hands.
And now, Gail, what does that make you think of as to what happened tonight?
I guess I don't have as much to forgive Vera for as Esther does Haman. But suppose I don't feel like forgiving her.
Well, you might be able to get through Armageddon and still feel as you do about her, but what's going to happen after that? Are you going to be able to go on not forgiving her and not forgetting these things that have happened and go on into everlasting life?
No, I guess I can't, can I?
Well, someday it's going to have to be forgiven and forgotten, dear.
So why not now? Right, Dad?
That's right, son. Well, some of the problems we see our brothers having with each other in the congregations, well, they seem so small in comparison to things that have happened in times past, which, well, they'll have to be forgiven. Well, how much easier it would be for us if we could keep the right mental outlook, and how much more peace and unity there would be in the organization right now when we need it so very much.
Oh, Daddy, I'm so ashamed. I'm really sorry for the way I've acted. Thanks for being so patient with me and for telling me about Esther. You know, when I think of how mature and loving Esther was for her age, well, I'm sure she'd never have felt the way I have toward Vera. Maybe now it'll be a little easier for me to keep my thinking in balance and to see things the way they really should be.